We're about 30 seconds shy of 9 o'clock, but if you have not gotten a cup of coffee or a cookie or a bottle of water or signed up for one of the 5 ice cream certificates in the box over there, please take time to do that. It's not one per site like we vote. This is one per person. So if your spouse has put their name on, put your name on too. We are sponsored today, or the folks that are buying us coffee and cookies and water is Superior Carts. So we're grateful for them for the contribution that they made to do that. We got the air on about 72, 73, putting the fans on. Is that too cold, or you all right? It's too cold? Just right. We got just right and too cold, so I'll leave the air on, the fan, we'll turn the fans off. If it gets the other way, let me know. Well, there are some here who have not been to a face-to-face before, but generally we start out by introducing the folks here that are on the board and on staff. And my name is Gene, and I'm on staff at the admin building. And this is somebody just asked, this is my 6th year. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to work here. Love the park, love the business of the park, hate the politics. But aside from that, it's a great place. We got Raj Grinwis here, who's been on the board for, I don't know, 10 years or so at different times. But Raj and Dennis King next to him, I'm sorry, Dennis King is on the board as well, and Jim Huck. Jim is the secretary of the board, and Jenny Hager is our treasurer on the board. Are there any other board members here? Jack, come on up. You don't get to sit down, dude. Jack is with Park and Garden, and so if you got any questions for him or comments, please feel free to say to speak up. We've got a mic up here. If you want to, I'd appreciate it if you could use the mic. We tape these, and the voices don't come through if you don't have a mic in your hand. So either grab the mic or come on up to the stand. But we're ready to get started here. If you'd like to have, if you have anything you'd like to bring up. Gentleman who just walked in is Don Van Duzelaar. He's our chairman of the board. So that's everybody so far that's on staff or on the board. Do we have any board candidates here? We do. Go ahead and introduce yourself. You guys get a chance to tomorrow, but go ahead.
Yeah. Maury Gabriels, D18. I've been here about 15 years and totally enjoy it. Retired, so I figured maybe I could go to work for some of you people here, and really appreciate the opportunity to let me do that. So D18, and thanks again.
Thanks, Maury. Anybody else? All right. Thanks, Maury. Does anybody have any questions? I know you said you had questions, so I'll bring you the mic.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the status of the Phase 2 pool.
The status of the Phase 2 pool? Getting pricing on it right now.
Okay. How big?
About the same size as as Phase 3. We're going by budget, not by what people want. But I shouldn't say what people want. We need a pool in Phase 2, and we need a pool that this is not going to be a lap pool. A large pool would be on the North Shore, in the central part of the park. If we ever do an indoor pool again, that's where that would go. But the pool we have a need for right now are for swim lessons, aquasize, those kind of things. We're sending kids across the street to Phase 3. That's not safe. So we want to do it on this side of the street. It's not so much, the pool would not be so much of a convenience as it would be a safety factor. So we are putting a pool in about the same size as that, or that's what we're pricing anyway. And we're finding that, that the budget we had set aside probably is not going to take care of it, but we're gonna make something happen here. So
Do you expect to break ground?
I'd like to have it open by next April 15, April, May.
You know, if your square feet isn't that much bigger, or, you know, that much more money, a 35 limit number of people in the pool, in phase 3, I mean, they turned it away after 35. That doesn't seem adequate for a resort park of this size.
It's not, and that's why we have more pools. I mean, that we have, when we're done with the pools, we should have enough pool space for the park. Right now, we have a void of say it fast twice, pool space. But that was exacerbated by the loss of the indoor pool that we had, and so now we're trying to find a way to patch things in till we get the chance to get an indoor pool back.
How about location?
Location will be in the Phase 2 recreation area. Where the tennis court is, that tennis court has to be replaced too. So,
So what will be eliminated?
nothing. We're gonna move, they would be moving the little playground that's there with the swings and stuff, that'll move. But the tennis court will, right now, we're planning on leaving that where it is, replacing that, and putting in a pool where the playground is. Yeah, be a great location, so. But it needs a bathhouse there too, which, you know, we're working on pricing that as well, so. We got any newcomers? Kimberly Williams, who is our CFO, just walked in, so if you have any questions of her, feel free to ask. Anything else? Yes. I can bring it to you.
I was just wondering if you could tell me what happened to the feral cats in Sandy Pines?
What happened to them?
Yes.
We quit feeding them, and they went away. That's what we're suspecting. Last year in September, the board voted to, I think it was September, board voted to stop feeding cats. Subsequent to that, there was some trapping going on for all critters, but we trapped, I don't know how many cats we trapped last year. I don't know if there's anybody here, but those, for the most part, after February, January, were to Allegan County, and quite honestly, we haven't been trapping for quite a while, and the cats seem to be, I don't see them around, and you obviously don't either. That's why you're asking the question. But we believe that you quit feeding, and the cats will go somewhere else. So it was a feeding ground for many years, and it was attracting the cats. So can't tell you where they went, but they're not here. Yes.
I've got a question about.
Yeah, but he won't hear you.
All right.
All right. We want to get you on video.
Oh, great. And this is a little tough because I don't want to sound like an elitist, and I don't think I really am. But what's the story with all the tents, the storage tents that some places look like tent cities? I mean, I know that sounds kind of shallow on my part. I don't mean for it to, because I understand that they're less expensive than a garage. But, you know, in some places it looks a little trashy. Ooh, no. Sorry.
I'm not sure, Raj, do you remember when that came about? How long ago? Because when I was here from 83 to 93, we could have a 4x8 shed, period. And everything you owned had to fit into that. So then the tents came along to put the golf carts in, I think, after that, didn't it? So that had to be maybe late 90s, in that range. And then it morphed from there into some of the barns or the garages we see now. So, pardon me?
Seems like that was around 11 years ago that we could start putting the garages in.
Oh, the 200 square feet? Yeah,
11 years ago.
could be, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. And you're right, some of those, the soft-sided sheds can look a little shabby. We have, last year, again, or it's 2 years ago, the board passed a rule for site cleanups, and one of the items in the site cleanup list are the zippers on those have to be working, and they can't have holes in them, they can't have tarps over the top of them. So, but you can't fix it with you can't fix a soft-sided shed to look like a hard-sided shed. So, right now it's permitted. That's all I can tell you.
Might be an issue to be addressed.
If you're interested in addressing that, I would take it to the Rules Committee and have them consider it. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that golf cart shelters not be allowed in the park?
No,
It seems like you were.
I know, it sounds kind of bad, and I don't mean it that way, because no, they're fine, they're fine. They're
Well,
just
they
our,
were here long before the garage, the 200-foot garage.
I just didn't know what the policy was, and if that counts toward the square footage for each one.
Yeah, it does.
It does. I'm Brandon, I don't mean to offend, sorry if I did.
That's
Just wanna
a
make
good
sure
point.
that we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Garage shelters.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're in good shape. Exactly, thank you for clarifying that.
yeah.
Yeah, if they're in good shape, you're right, and, I told you it might sound really bad, and I did, I thought it was that, but,
Yes.
On a different subject. Ray Muzzin, 314. We're new here to the park, and it's really a cool place, great place to be. But is there any plans or anything going on to make more boat stakes or docks available?
No.
I don't like that answer.
The boat stake program, when that began, whenever that was probably, it was well intended, but there's two things that are very, very hard to manage. One is boat stakes and the other is charter cable. Both of them take up about 98% of the time of one of our staff every day. And they become the focus at times of some pretty heated commentary toward them for something they can't do anything about. We can't put more boat stakes in where there are none. Can we put more docks in? We have a plan to purchase more docks, I would say, but the permitting process is long, so it won't be a short-term fix. And then the issue is, do we really want more boats on the lake? Right now, there's about 1,100 or 1,200 active boat stakes. 1224? Do you remember the number at all?
It was just over 1,200 in
Yeah,
Westville.
yeah. And there are 220 people on a waiting list, and we get about 5 freed up stakes a year.
I'm 183.
How did you get that high, only being here for a while? Anyway, no,
The thing we did, we got to put our name on the list.
put your name on the list, yeah. Yeah, it's been an issue lately, but the simple answer is the answer I first gave, is that, it's, if you don't have one, you should look for a site that has one. That'd be the quickest way to get one. And so
I don't know if there's something in the works to improve on that, find more docks.
we're just trying to manage it with what we got right now. And the docks, we've got about 80 folks waiting for a dock, I believe. And We do have it on the 10-year capital reserve for purchasing docks, but it's down the road a ways. So it's not saying we're not going to do it, but it's finding the right place to do it, and then getting the permitting. The handicap dock we have at the boat ramp over here, that took about 2 years to get that one. Yeah, yeah. It's that aluminum floating dock. That's for handy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Joel. Yeah, sure.
How do those boat docks work? Do you purchase into them and then you get first dibs the next year on that same spot, or?
It works just like a stake as long as you pay your renewal.
Okay.
You just get billed for it, and if
So
you
once you get one, I mean.
once you
got
get one,
it.
you got it. Yep,
Okay.
unless you stop paying for it,
Right.
and then it will be freed up. Yeah. Good point. We got 104 docks, by the way.
You're referring to the floating docks?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Andy, I wondered when you were going to start.
Wait for everybody else to peter out. No, I just had a follow-up on that. Any comments about the number of boats on the lake and lakeshore erosion? Because I see that around the lake all over the place with the amount of waves boats are generating and erosion on the shoreline. Is that, how do we address that? Is that a concern?
The fix to it, or the best way to mitigate it, is to make it a no-wake lake. We've been going around this lake for 47 years, same way. When I was here in 83 to 93 on N17 over there, we had 20 feet of beach. Today there's a seawall there. They didn't have these wakeboard boats until about 3 years ago. Now we've got about 7 of them. It's not them.
We're on phase 5.
Yeah.
So we're in the wake zone, and I tell you, we have 2 foot or higher waves that come right up over our seawall when
Yep.
those big power boats go by us, and they generate huge.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're not contributing, but it's not only them. It's the skiing and the tubing, and if we want to keep it a sports lake, we'll probably wind up eventually with a seawall lake. But, I mean, that's, how do you stop it? But all in all, we still have some open shore around here, but it's, here's this point over here in phase 5. You see where somebody puts a seawall in, it isn't too long, and the next person's got to put a seawall in because it just swirls around, and one makes it impossible not to eat away at the shore at the other one. So, but to go deeper into an answer on your question, the Rules Committee brought something to the board about the wake boats a while back, and I think that was kind of the gist of the whole thing, was that to pick on a class of boat, you'd probably have to pick on all motor boats that go over a certain speed. So I don't think they were ready to move on that. But good question.
Hey, Gene.
Long-range planning has also been looking at trying to find
Oh,
a way to address that problem. So it's definitely being looked at by more than one group. So yeah, everybody knows it's a problem. It just doesn't have an easy fix.
yeah. Okay. Good. Good deal. Do any of you up here have, Jim or Dennis or Jack or Raj, have anything you want to bring up or add to the conversation? No? Guys are sure. You're leaving me standing here. Oh, okay. We got a taker here.
Andy can carry a meeting if
Yeah.
nobody else does.
This actually is not a complaint, yay. The powers that be years ago obviously decided that that end of the lake would be no wake. It is beautiful down there. Thank you for doing that.
Okay. Well, I wish I could take credit for it, but you're right. It's on the warm Sunday afternoons. There's a lot of boats out there that enjoy hanging out there. Yeah. Andy, did you have something else?
I just wondered about the FEMA grant. I think if you could just talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. I got another question I'm going to ask you. The FEMA grant, we haven't heard anything since probably about a month ago. We were asked a couple of clarification questions. We responded to those. The survey that we had to have done to make sure that there's no Indian burial grounds there or a rare frog or something that lives there, that's been done, and that we passed that. So we had FEMA in here. I think it was just before the last time we met at face-to-face. A couple of representatives, 3 of them from FEMA and the state of Michigan, came in, and they were thoroughly impressed with the facilities that they were involved with in phase 3. And we took them over to this site and showed them the site and where we would like to put where the next building would possibly be. But at this point, we haven't heard any more since then. But I was hoping we'd hear by the end of this month. But I'm not sure. You know, with some of the things that FEMA has going on, they'll be hot and cold. They'll be on to some other project like Hawaii with the eruptions there, and then they'll come back and they'll work on this other stuff a while. So I don't have anything yet, but everything is as far as we know, everything's been submitted and approved. So
future timeline, give us an idea. What if this project gets approved by FEMA and we want to proceed ahead with it? What would be the timeline in terms of construction, and how long would it take, and how many years, and also what is our portion of the liability in terms of funding, and where's that money going to come from? All that kind of thing.
All right. This project, should it go, we would have 3 years from the time we were awarded the project to build it. If we get it this summer yet, we would probably go into hard drawings over the off season, and then refine that over the first part of the next season. I'm kind of spitballing here, Andy, but I'm just saying kind of how the last one went. Then probably by the end of next season, we would have a bidding process put in place, and they would have bids done by, hopefully, I would think by September. I don't know, maybe before that, maybe July or August, that the bidding would be done, and then construction would start as soon as the park was vacated. That's what we did with these, so October 15. As far as the timeline and construction, I'm not sure at this point. I know that they've given us an estimate on the time that it's going to take to put it up, but I honestly, I don't remember what it is. I would hope that it would be done by early summer, you know, like early June the following year. But then, and then as far as the funding is concerned, right now we have it would be at 75%, 25%. And it's about a $4 million project, so we'd need about $1 million.
That's of the hardening costs.
That's of the hardening costs.
We have to pay 100% of the non-hardening
We'd have
costs.
to pay 100% of the non-hardening. Our total commitment, I believe, would be $1.4 million, which is a little more than I was hoping for. Right now, we've got. If the board is not interested, I don't believe, but that's their call. We have 184 days of cash on hand, which is about $3 million. That is unspoken for. Above that, we have about another $500,000. So if we had 3 years to do this, we would have 2 more years, and the cash that we wind up with is a result of operational reserves. In other words, so we could transfer, or the board can transfer money from operations to that if we get through the year and we got some money left. That's what's been happening. Last 6 years, we had, we've been averaging, well, I'm sorry, the last 5 years, we've been averaging about $400,000, $400,000 to $500,000 a year, with the exception of last year, 2017, we had an increase in cash of $1,019,000. So I believe that it's very possible that within the timeline and working conservatively with operational budgets, that we have or will have the funds to do this. My goal would be to do this without any assessment like we did the phase 3.
So this would just require board approval, no membership approval is going to be required if we fund this fully from operational reserves.
I'm assuming that whether it is or isn't, if there's an assessment, yeah, then it would need board approval, our membership approval. You're right. Yeah, that's right. Yep. But I'm hoping we don't have to do that. I am not an advocate of assessments, stacking them on top of each other. I think a long-term goal has been to work the assessments down rather than add more assessments. So I would like to see this, personally, I'd like to see this thing go up without any assessments. So.
And I think selling a building like this to the membership without first having put in the money toward an indoor pool building is going to be a really hard sell. Members are going to be asking, why aren't we spending the money on an indoor pool building first before we build another storm shelter, you know, and if that goes up for a vote for the membership, I don't see the membership passing that.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty simple equation, Andy. When somebody gives you 75 cents for every dollar you spend, are you going to turn it down, or are you going to, okay, that right now, that's the flavor of the month with FEMA, is they want to build these buildings. So we're going to take advantage of it if we can. I mean, I would, if it comes to a point where this thing comes in too much, and we don't, and we as an administration and board don't believe that it's fundable, I don't know if it'll go through. We can still turn it down. Yeah. So. And we can't do one with a pool.
Any chance that when we're going through the planning stages, say over the next year for this building, that we can, and we'd have to pay that out of our own pocket, but that we could put a plan together for an attached or an associated pool building? They all architecturally, if you're going to build multiple buildings, have to blend together. Yeah. You can't build one building and look at a completely different style building right next door. Right. So it seems like if you're planning one building, you could hire the same architects and say, give us a plan for an indoor pool building right next door, and FEMA wouldn't pay for that. We'd have to pay for that ourselves. Right. But at least we would get a plan out of this for a pool building in the future.
That's exactly right, and I think that should be the next step. Again, the pool was up twice. It was up both times and was turned down. That being said, they all have their reasons for voting no one way or the other. But what you're saying is exactly right, that if there's going to be a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 project over on the North Shore, it would make sense to, you'd want them all to match, you'd want them all tied together. We've talked to FEMA about the multiple building placement, and they don't have a problem with it as long as we can have a clear separation between them, which would be probably a walkway or something like that. So yeah. Dee, I want to come back to you, Andy.
Since we're on that subject, just where are you going to be putting that FEMA building?
In the same area. I don't know exactly the footprint, but in the same area as the indoor pool was.
Okay, so if we have a nice indoor pool being built in the future, that will probably be up where it was before, up on the beach there. Wouldn't your FEMA building be behind that, closer to the road?
The FEMA building's got to be 200 feet from the shoreline. So that will place the depth away from it at that point, and it's got to be a certain height. So there's a chance that it could, you're right, Dee, it could be back a little further, but it won't, it'll still be within the cusp of that hill.
Because it would be nice when you do have the indoor pool built in the future, that would be able to look out the lake, not the FEMA building should be behind.
Yeah, I don't think there wouldn't be obstructing in the view of one another.
Okay.
They would be placed in a, you know, side by side.
So
Or
side by side.
one would be placed maybe a little more in front of the other. But again, those are things that we haven't looked at, so. We know that we don't want them to be stacked in there
Yeah.
so that you'd hide the water.
Okay.
Go ahead.
About the FEMA building. My question is, I guess operationally, how is that going to work? You know, in Florida, we have days' notice before a hurricane arrives. We can pack up the car and leave. In tornadoes, obviously, you don't have that long advance notice. So are people going to be driving their cars down there? Will we have parking for 200 cars or whatever we need? How will we be alerted to go there? Should that be an hour before a tornado might happen? And are we going to have X number hundred of people in that building for hours at a time?
The building is designed, based on what I've seen, to hold 1,104 people, which includes, I believe, room for 6 or 8 handicap, which would be wheelchair. Per person is 5 square feet is the requirement per person, and then I think it's 20 square feet for a handicap. That being said, where are they going to park? Well, FEMA requirements are that the building, for the most part, is going to serve people who are within a 5-minute walk. So we have the same thing over at in phase 3. We have not increased their parking at all, and we have 2 buildings over there. I don't see us increasing the parking over here just because we don't have the land to do it, but the parking lots that are there now will certainly remain there. I don't think we're going to be eating into them at all. So, but this will be a 2-story. It will be the first 2-story storm shelter that FEMA ever built. So that's why it's got their interest. So there would be an upper and a lower entry to it. But does that answer your question?
Well, okay, so for clarification, you're saying people would go to that building as soon as we're under a tornado warning or watch?
Yes. Yeah. We have, last year we put into effect, we purchased an alert system. It's called the RAVE alert system. If you're part of that, that would be tripped one of 2 ways. One would be at our safety security would be able to trip it, but the other one is with the Allegan County Emergency Services and NOAA. They can trip that too. So that would send a message to you, or text to you, or an email to you that there's a tornado in the area, and that's when you would, get over there.
So then we should probably have a rule that says you cannot drive your cart or car to the shelter. Because otherwise you're going to have hundreds of vehicles there with no place to put them.
I would say that there's going to be a lot of leeway given if there's a tornado coming. You want to park on the grass, you park on the grass. You want to park on the side of the road, you park on the side of the road. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So your plan includes that there is enough green space and parking space for 500 vehicles?
I'm saying within a 5-minute walk, you can park in a lot of different places. So getting to it is going to be, the key is getting there before there's 1,104 people in there, I guess.
Right. You don't want to be the 1,105th.
That's right. Right. Okay. Yep, go ahead. I'll get back to you.
Okay, the parking down there by the recreation station, there's very limited vehicle parking. There's lots for golf carts, and there's always been a problem, especially for the adult pool, by parking alongside the roadway. Then the rangers come through and ask people to move their vehicles, and they don't know where to put them.
What are you suggesting?
Well,
I'm open, but
alongside
we have
this-
the golf carts is basically the golf cart parking at the rec station is there to solve a problem similar to what this gentleman was talking about. You get cars in there, you're not going to get as many people in there. So, and there's so many different amenities in that complex that you need to keep the bulk of the vehicles down. So, and then the adult pool, you're right, there's always a lot of golf carts parked down there. Are they giving you a problem with parking on both sides?
No, I'm talking about car vehicles, those
Yeah,
who
yeah.
don't own the golf carts that, you know, have no place to really park very well.
Yeah, we rent golf carts. No, I don't, whatever's there is there, we can't make any more space that I know of. Do you know if there's any hard?
The green space across the street from the adult pool is technically green space, but parallel parking has always been allowed there for the adult pool access.
The rangers have come through and asked them to move vehicles.
Not this one. Because I understand exactly what the situation is there regarding people who drive automobiles to the adult pool. We've never been told or directed to have people move off of that green space.
Have them call Drew if you have a problem. Thank you. You want to pass it down one way or the other? Thanks, Gloria.
I have a question about, back to FEMA again. Now, you put all the FEMA buildings on that side of the lake, but were these bathrooms ever, are they tornado secure over here, all the older bathrooms?
Yep. Good question. Well, we put the first two over on the southwest side, or southeast side, you know. This would be the project. The third project will probably be, my understanding, they're already thinking about it, if FEMA's gonna still be on this kick of being able to, or wanting to fund these. The next one would be up where the dairy dip is. We can't put one here because we're too close to the water, but that would be the next one. And that would likely replace these restrooms in here. But eventually, we'd like to keep going to every CC, because there's some older ones here that structurally they're fine. Okay. But are they storm shelters? They're better than your trailer, but they're not perfect, that's for sure. Yeah. There was another question over here. If you want to pass that mic back over this way. You guys are asking questions, that's great. Last time I was trying to figure out things to say, so.
Well, it's back to the FEMA buildings, and the thing I was concerned with is none of the access in the new buildings are accessible to someone in a wheelchair. You can't get in the door trying to open it.
Yep.
When is that going to be corrected?
That is not going to be, that's not going to change.
They approved that?
Absolutely. What we are going to do is in the new building, it will be designed in. It didn't get designed into this one, and to add it afterwards, it was a pretty exorbitant number. So we're assuming that there's going to be folks. If some of you have been standing outside of the CCs when there's a tornado watch, probably 30 to 40% of the people that are at a CC are standing outside. They will be more than happy to hold the door open, and that's what we have to do with it over here. That being said, I think it was certainly an oversight, but we're going to correct it with the buildings going forward.
But you're not going to correct the old ones?
No, we're not going to do anything with this one.
Okay.
Thanks for asking. Andy, by the way, can you grab that mic from? Thank you. I asked Andy, we're going into negotiations with Spectrum Charter with our video and internet, and Andy's very, very adept at those kind of things from an engineering perspective, and so I asked him to join us a week or so ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was this past Tuesday.
Was it this past Tuesday? Boy, okay, you're probably right. Where we had our initial meeting. When I started here 6 years ago, our rep, we were residential. They were treated as a residential park. and had a residential product. When I got here, they said, you're not going to be residential anymore, you got to be commercial, bulk product. So that's when we went to the digital TV, or video, and we had representation out of Petoskey, Tom Margarita, if some of you remember him. Since then, they split the state, and we had another rep that was closer, just Lansing, and Erin Ludwig was her name. She did a great job. She was here at a couple of meetings. She was very responsive to us in the process of this last 5 years. Subsequently, Charter, Spectrum, and Time Warner merged, and in that merger, we lost our local representation, being Aaron, and we've got two folks out of they're out of Ohio, I believe, and they don't know Sandy Pines from the Horseshoe Campground in Door, or in Wales, yeah, in Door. So we had them up here. It took us about 6 months to get them to come up, but they came up this past week, and we took them for a tour. And they were very nice, but they had no idea of the scope of what Sandy Pines is. So I wanted to ask Andy to give his opinion of how that meeting went and where he sees from that. We didn't talk about internet. We did talk about the video. So Andy, if you'd give us a recap.
Yeah, the recap that I can't get, and I was just there for the technical discussion portion of it, but the recap of the meeting is basically when this system that we currently have today was put in place, it was a customized solution that Charter at that time came up with specifically for Sandy Pines. The channel listing that we have and the ClearQuam broadcasting system that we have was a solution that they came up with, and it's customized just for us. And the pricing package that they gave us with the contract was also customized from us, just specifically for Sandy Pines. The approach that they are now taking is that they want to go to, much like the residential side, a standardized packaging system, so that regardless of whether you are a resort, you're a hotel, you're a jail, you're a campground, you're a whatever, you get the same solution. They have a standard bundleized package that they're going to be offering to every enterprise, every commercial institution, including Sandy Pines. So what that means is that we'll be getting a more standardized package from them. And I'm assuming, and I don't know anything about the billing side, but I'm assuming that they're going to want to charge us the same thing billing-wise that they're going to want to charge every other institution, which means that whatever we're being charged now, undoubtedly is going to change, and I would bet it's going to go up dramatically, possibly. The changes that I see in the current system are the bundle package that they have, the standard bundle package that they have, will increase the number of channels that we get by about 60 channels. So instead of having roughly 95 channels that we have today, we'll be getting more like about 160 channels, including things like the Sci-Fi channel and other popular channels that we don't get today. We're also potentially, they have an optional sports package that includes 35 sports channels, 10 of which we currently get today. I don't know whether we're going to, I guess it's going to depend on price, whether we're going to include the entire sports package as a part of that contract. The one thing that they are offering in this standardized solution is a separate channel, much like our channel 9.4, that gives you the listing of the current channels, but that channel will now contain a full program guide. So you will have a scrolling screen that will have, and they didn't know the exact number of hours, but probably 2 to 3 hours of program information per channel, so that all the 160 channels will scroll by on your screen, and you'll be able to see the current program on every channel, again, and also what's coming up in the next few hours. So that will be a dramatic improvement. I tried to push for a better improvement, something called PSIP data. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't know whether we can negotiate that as a part of our contract. With the addition of PSIP data, which is Program System Information Protocol data, that's the kind of data that drives your television to display correct channel numbers. It gives you the information when you bring up a channel as to what that channel is, the program that's on that channel, the ratings information, the time, start and end, all of that is part of that data. They don't broadcast that data, and they in general don't broadcast it for commercial Clearcom systems in general. They could do it. It's technically possible, but it would require them to have development effort to do that. And development effort means money, and money means they're going to charge us even more. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. We've been asking for it, you know, and they've been promising something like that. Even 5 years ago when Tom Margarita gave the sales pitch, he even mentioned it too, that they could do it. But so anyway, that's what I took out of the meeting. You know, the program listing will be improved. There will be more channels. We will get the scrolling program guide. So I think those will be improvements that people will really appreciate. So, Joel, you had a question?
I'm going to ask the question that a lot of people ask. Are they going to be able to use DVRs, recording devices, things like that, in the increased cost? Is that going to be available to us? The second question is, are we being forced into this decision, or do we have the ability to stay the course?
Yeah, my sense is that their corporate mandate is to drive toward a standardized solution across all enterprises, and that the current system that we have today, they don't want to maintain that. They want to sort of standardize everything and just give Sandy Pines the same standard package that they give every other corporate enterprise in this region. So I don't see us, if we went back to them and said, we just want to keep what we have exactly today, I don't think they're going to even want to do that. They're not going to offer that as an option. And the second question is DVRs. Are they going to work? I have a DVR, works just fine. Having said that, does it work the same way as it works at home? Of course not. DVRs are driven by this thing that I just mentioned, PSIP data. PSIP data tells your DVR what time it is, it tells it what programs are listing, it brings up the electronic program guide. That's all part of PSIP data control system broadcast that they don't broadcast here in Sandy Pines. So I have a DVR, and if it has a QAM tuner in it, like your TV has to have, it'll work just fine. Does it work like at home? No, it does not. In order to program my DVR, I have to bring it up, I have to tell it at 7 o'clock tonight to 8 o'clock tonight, start time, end time, I want you to record channel 45.1. Does it do it? Sure it does it. Does it tell me what program that was? No, of course not. When I bring up my program listing, all it tells me, I recorded 45.1 at 7 o'clock. So is that what people want to see? I've told my wife, go ahead and program it. She's like, well, where's the electronic program guide? How do I scroll across? How do I record a program? I go, you don't get any of that here. You have to do it. She goes, I'm not doing that. So can you make it work? Yeah. Is it user-friendly? Oh, absolutely not. And so that's part of the problem. Now, having said that, understand that the converter boxes that we use here in this park, even the ones you can buy from Park and Garden, you can use those as a recorder. Those have record capability built into them. They are driven by PSIP data. So can you use those to do future schedule recording? No, those boxes have to get their time of day from the system. You can't, like my DVR, I can program, I can go into manual menu and I can say set clock, and I can tell the DVR what time it is, so it knows what time it is. Those boxes don't have that ability. They're cheap little boxes. They get their time from the system. Without PSIP data broadcast in Sandy Pines, you can't use those boxes as a DVR. And I told the Spectrum people that I said the 600 or 800 people that have those converter boxes, they would have immediately a built-in DVR if you broadcast PSIP data. Those boxes could immediately be turned into DVRs. So, so I'm trying to push for it, but again, it requires development effort on their part to do that, and they don't want to spend the money just for one installation like us, just to give us that ability. So DVRs, yeah, if you buy one, and I have a Magnavox. Magnavox is one of the few brands that has a built-in. Most DVRs do not have a QAM tuner in them, I'll tell you that. Magnavox is one of the only ones that does. And so if you buy a Magnavox DVR, and Amazon sells them, I bought mine off Craigslist for $30. I mean, you can buy them used pretty cheap, but the new ones cost $400 or $500. So, And to spend that kind of money and have a user-unfriendly DVR, most people don't want to do that.
Right.
So that's the problem we have right now, so.
Thanks.
You can also hook it up through the HDMI.
Yeah, as far as bundles, it's an all or nothing thing. I mean, the two, in their standardized packages, they have what they call their deluxe bundle that has about 125 channels, and then there's a sports bundle that has 35 more channels. So total between the two would be about 160 channels, but it's an all or nothing thing. And I did ask them the question, what if there are channels, because there's like 6 MTV channels. Sometimes people don't want MTV. I mean, there are channels that I think when we had the original one, we told Charter, we really don't want these channels. Can you replace it with something else? And I did ask them the question, if there are channels in this bundle that we don't want, can you block those? And they said, we'll look into it. So.
Well, the basic package is what Andy's talking about, 125, and then the extended is the sports package. And then there's a Latino package.
They had some other like Latino, they had the adult package, they had, you know, other stuff that, and we're not going to probably buy any of those. Yeah, it's an all or nothing thing.
It's an all or nothing.
Yeah, it's a clear, unencrypted broadcast system that goes to every site in the park. So you really don't have any way to block out one site.
I just appreciate Andy being there, and I think everybody at Spectrum now calls him PSIP Andy. Because now they know what it means. If they didn't before, they do now. But I think we're still going to push. We're going to press for that because I think it would be great if they could do it, and maybe it could be a one-time hit rather than a monthly thing. We'll see how much they. It seems to me Tom Margarita gave us a number at one time.
Yeah, he gave a number out, and it was in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and I mean, he wasn't an engineer either, so I don't know if he knew.
Part of the cost, part of the main cost of it is that you have to be a subscription to what they call the ROV, TV Guide. TV Guide is really owned by ROV. You have to be a subscriber to their service to be able to pull all that programming information in to build an electronic program guide. And they obviously are already tied into that.
Yeah.
If we did it ourselves in-house, we'd have to subscribe, and it's thousands of dollars a year to subscribe to that. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. As far as pricing, we're not sure where we're going to be. 6 years ago, 6 years ago, we were at the end of a term, which is what we got us into the next 5 years of stability. But prior to that, there were 5 years that Charter had the ability to raise their fees every year by 10%. The last contract we did, let me back up. So it went from $89 to $129 in that 5-year period. From that time till today, we're still at $129. We contracted with them at no more than a 3% overall increase. We've never gotten an increase from them. So that being said, it's been stable. It's not been perfect, but I think we all agree that the pictures are good. But there's some things like DVRs that you can't use with this system and so on. So with the new system, they weren't able to give us any pricing until the 18th of August. And we told them we need to know because we're going to the board with final budget numbers. Actually, it'll go to the finance committee meeting and then the second Thursday of the month. So we've asked, of August. So we've asked them for pricing by the end of the first week in August, and they seem to be committed. The guy there that was there, right. he seemed to be committed to getting us the number. So we'll find out where our costs are with that. But you heard Andy's version of it, and what the increase in stations are probably is going to equate to more money. Just don't know what it is. We have the same thing with the internet. This spring, when we were introduced to the new folks from Time Warner, we had, I think Sue at our office had 40 orders for for modems, for internet modem installs. And we had been, as you well know, we charged $192 a season, around $32 a month for 6 months. We had 40 orders in. I got a call, I got a contract sent to me, emailed to me from Charter. They would be $59.99 a month, no more 6 months, and it would be $100 a piece to install. I about fell on the floor because there was no way we could do that. And so we had a number of conference calls, and if you have ever dealt with a large company like that, nobody wants to make a decision. But we finally got to a point where we got the same pricing for the rest of this season. So we are at the same price. The 40 that went out, plus probably another, I think we've probably had about 80 to 100 go out. 87 go out this year. So we're really interested in what they're going to do with internet service. We are a 6-month park. And I just, for the life of me, I don't know why we would have a hard time being a seasonal customer. But we pay year-round for the cable TV, but we have not for internet. So, something, Pam?
Is it possible to get quotes from somewhere else?
Yeah, I just don't right now. You know, Comcast doesn't come here, and Spectrum doesn't go into Grand Rapids, so they're kind of protecting each other there.
I'm from Chicago, so I don't even know what service providers are in this area, whether AT&T or DirecTV or any other provider can even, or Dish, or whether anybody else could even service this area. I have no idea.
Yeah, there's some small regional internet services, like there's one in Allegan County, but it's like 3 meg service, and that's just not going to work here. So we're limited into what we have available to us for sure. AT&T would probably be the closest, and I think they stop at 26 here, or 28.
How about
So
Verizon?
Verizon, we got a tower. That would be Wi-Fi, right? So there's another whole issue, is Wi-Fi in Sandy Pines. That's a real challenge. Actually, Spectrum's working on that, and I believe the technology committee is working on with another vendor. But the technology for Wi-Fi has not proven to be effective here, and that's why we went to cable modems in the first place. Because if you're in phase 5 maybe, and around the perimeter, you could do well with that system. But if you were in phase 3, you didn't have anything. So the canopy that we have here and the undulation in the ground really makes Wi-Fi a challenge. So I wouldn't want to jump back into that very quickly unless they did some testing here to make sure we could do that.
Yeah, and be aware that even the Wi-Fi hotspots that we have, the IT group limits your download capability to 2 megabits per second, which is basically dial-up speed. I mean, it's very slow. And the Wi-Fi hotspots here are not anywhere near the blazing speed you get on your personal internet on your own site. So be aware of that. And even our cell phone tower, I had performance engineers from Verizon run performance tests on it, and they sent me all the graphs and showed me that there are at times up to 800 connected users on that tower, which is way oversubscribed. And that's why that tower is running really slow too right now. So if you notice really slow throughput on your phones, that's why the tower is being way overused. And they are committed to increasing and adding additional bandwidth, additional frequency bands on that tower next year. And that will greatly help those users, but just be aware that even Wi-Fi and even cell phone usage on the tower right now is the performance it's being way overused.
Yeah. And to tag along with that is that what I've seen in the last 6 years is that we out of every 10 people that are buying into the park, 8 of them are are actively working or have families. So this is only going, this problem or challenge is only going to be exacerbated if we don't find technology that works properly in the park here. Because there's a lot of folks that, and I think Andy's one of them, that can work right from here. He doesn't have to be at home to do so, and there's more people like that. And so their demands for good service and good quality connections and broadband width is going to be important going forward. So we're going to have to stay on top of this. It's going to be a moving target because I think we all enjoy our cell phones and devices. Yeah, Joel?
And I'll just add to that. I'll tell you, I wouldn't have bought here if we didn't have this infrastructure. If we didn't have high-speed internet and the kind of service we have here, I wouldn't have purchased here. It's that simple. So, I mean, for some people, it's critical.
Yep, absolutely. That's what I mean. It's going to be critical going forward as well. So. Yeah, Joel?
So this is going to, between the TV and the internet, cost individual members an additional cost going forward that we suspect, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
We are going forward with the TV and the internet into future years. It is going to cost the individual member more money, additional costs every year to maintain what we have going forward.
Yeah, that's what we're going to find out. I can't say yes or no to that yet. As technology advances, it also, in some cases, becomes less money, more affordable. Look at your laptop today, what you can buy one for and what you would have bought one for even 10 years ago. So I can't say that that we're really going to get hit, but I don't know. So the indication that we had the other day on pricing when we tried to press them with something, they just said it could be close. Okay, I don't know what that means. If they say close per month, but it's 12 months a year, I'm not going to venture a guess because I'll get caught with my pants down. And that wouldn't be pretty. What else? Was there anything else on while we're on that subject, Andy?
No, that's all I had.
All right. Again, thank you for being a part of that. Go ahead, sir.
When they do this changeover, right now, there's probably several people here that have TVs coax right into it. When they do this changeover, will every TV to work have to have a box?
No. The ClearQuan broadcast system will be identical to what we have today. There'll be really, from a user perspective, the only thing you're going to have to do is rescan because all the channels will change. All the frequencies will change, all the broadcast channels, but in terms of your connection and how your TV operates, no, it'll still work exactly the same. It'll still be a ClearQuan broadcast system. So,
Andy, you laid out the other day how many we'd gain, how many we'd lose. You remember what that was?
Yeah, I think there are 14 channels that we have today that will be deleted, and I looked at which ones those are. There didn't seem to be real. We get like C-SPAN 2, C-SPAN 3, and the new package there's only C-SPAN. There's only one C-SPAN channel. So some of the channels get removed. I didn't see really any real popular channels getting removed. We're going to getting a net gain of about 50 new channels. And then if we get the sports package, there'll be about 25 more sports channels that we'll be getting too. So net will be getting, I think, around 60 or 70 additional new channels.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? Yeah, Bob.
Our current system.
Hang on. I'm going to get you a mic.
Our current system, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4. 4 or 5 years ago when we got the new contract, we had a radar image from channel 8 and channel 13. Magically, those disappeared. So lo and behold, we have a Sandy Pines weather outlet from somewhere. And we had a radar image on one of those channels. It changed quite frequently, whether it was 1, 2, or 3. But now it seems to be on channel 9.1, and somebody put a big blob on the bottom of the screen that says, "Call Kathy if you want to advertise here." So now the radar images from Kalamazoo all the way to the North Pole in Canada, and we can't get any radar south of Kalamazoo. There ought to be something we can do locally to fix it.
Yeah, we can fix that. Our managers up in Traverse City, they manage the system. So we can ask them for that. What the reason I think it was taken off originally, Bob, was that we also had a TV8 and a TV13 weather channel as part of the basic lineup. I don't know as though we have that anymore, but it might be gone.
The channel 8 weather is on 41.4 local off the air antenna, and channel 13 is still on 13.2. So they're available off the air, but not in our system.
Okay.
But I don't know, I'm sick and tired of seeing advertisement on our own channel. I get enough ads on regular TV, let alone ours.
That's how we pay for it, with advertising.
Yeah, thank you.
You want it on the top of the screen? Oh, I see what you're saying. Because on some of them, isn't it off to the side, and then so it's covering the map. Gotcha. All right. Let me write it down. Go ahead, Andy.
We had talked, I know in a number of meetings, we had talked about taking these recordings and sending them up to Traverse City and putting them on a loop on like 9.2 or whatever, you know, these face-to-face, the board meetings, et cetera. I don't see any reason why it can't be done, and I think it would be really helpful for people that, you know, don't always have access to YouTube and the internet and be able to just go on one of the local channels and be able to watch a board meeting or a face-to-face meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Well, I had the comment about putting these board meetings and face-to-face on the, like, channel 9.2 or whatever, and I think if we just take the MP4 file and ship it up to Traverse City, they could put it on a loop and just put it on the channel.
I think they could. It seems like we've done that in some cases, but not in all cases. Maybe there's a reason we haven't done it. I'd find out though. But the other thing, I know what I was thinking about when you were talking about the first time. We are working on getting prices on WebEx service, which would allow people to log in to the camera and board meetings, these kind of meetings, and one of the bylaw changes that you'll be voting on and we'll be voting on is the ability for the board to meet virtually, which we have not had in the past. The bylaws now require at least a quorum to be on site. Well, when your board is only committed to 5 meetings a year and then they're in other places in the country, it's hard for that to happen. So consequently, from September to May, we don't post the financials from July, August, August through May are not posted until after the board sees them in May. Then they approve them. If we could get this passed, we could have a financial meeting once a month or every other month and at least get some of these posted in a more timely fashion. So that's what the bylaw really was meant for. But to be prepared to do that, now we might be able to tag onto that the ability to have folks tie into their computers to join a meeting like this.
Yeah, it's, you know, I use WebEx every day, and it's a great system, and we use it. I mean, that's our corporate standard for having meetings around the world, and it works great. And you can tie in and mute, you know, if you don't want people to be able to talk, or you can unmute. If so, a board member ties in, they can be unmuted, they can talk, but everybody else gets muted and can't talk. So I mean, and the nice thing about it is it's all online and immediately recorded. So as soon as the meeting ends, the online recording is instantly available. Mm-hmm. So it's immediately available to everybody right at the end of the meeting. So it's a nice system. We use it every day.
Good. Yeah, it came highly recommended, so we're working on prices on that. Yes, ma'am. No, no, I don't see that happening. The vote was cast, I don't know how long ago that the membership voted for cable. 10 years ago at least. But at the time it was either do you want cable or do you not want cable, and it passed. So we're not required to. It's hard enough to negotiate with Spectrum with 2 or 3 people around the table. We really would be a tough time to offer options to the membership that we may not be able to get. So what we're going to look at is price a lot. Okay, I see what you. Yeah. I got you. I got you.
But keep in mind, though, that 35 channels includes 10 sports channels that we currently get on our current system. So if we don't take the sports channel, the sports package with the 35 channels, the 10 existing sports channels that we currently receive, they'll be gone. We won't get any of those. And I think you'll get a lot of people that love sports that are going to be pretty upset.
Yeah, if you're a Tiger fan or a Lions fan, you won't get those. It's like if you're a golfer and you have to go to the next package up at home to get the golf channel now. So, good question though. Anybody else? Oh, Bob's showing me the problem. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I got you. I wrote it down too. We'll get it fixed, Bob. You know, we have a phone number over there. You can call. You can tell me these things before. We could have fixed that a long time ago. It's all right. I'm sorry about it, folks. Yeah. That's true. We're receiving our video for about on an average of $10 a month per site, so $129. It is a good deal. I mean, if you look at what you're paying for cable at home, yep, there's some restrictions on this one, but $10 is pretty reasonable. So. Thank you, Carolyn. Anything else from
Gene,
anybody?
we talked about, in past meetings, we talked about the state rule with the 4-foot offset for garages from sites and how many sites are violating that, and whether the state's going to come in and we're deemed non-compliant, and whether they're going to force us to fix all of that. Have there any updates on that?
Those folks are coming back here. I believe we've got a meeting with them on the 3rd for another reason. But I'm hoping that we can get an update on it. They've been very slow in coming back to us. I don't know what that means, but they were very attentive to what we have here. They didn't seem like they were going to stomp their feet down and say, you know, you got to do this and you got to do it now. And they haven't contacted us since we met with them. So now we're bringing them in on another issue, a project that we'd like to try with respect to black water and gray water being mixed on site, and eliminating seepage pits. So we were hoping to do a few test sites on that for long-term water quality stability. Right now, our black water is not diluted enough, and the BODs are still pretty high. So the bacteria levels and the nitrates. So we want to be proactive in it. We don't want to raise any red flags that unnecessarily that for an issue that we think we can fix long term. So that's why they're coming in, but it's a lot of the same players. So we're gonna try and press them. I would like to see it in letter form rather than verbal, so that we can go from there. But again, it's like nobody wants to put their name on the line, probably, is what the issue is. Yeah, you should do this, and yeah, but we're not going to tell you how. And but anyway, I hope that we'll get some more answers on that by the time we meet again the next time. But I do hope that it's in written form. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I went to the Rules Committee to get a rule change about seawalls. You know about this.
Yeah.
And over a month ago, it passed unanimously at the rules to have that rule changed. I want to know why it wasn't brought up to the board and why the rule change wasn't made.
Okay. Is Don still here? Don, you want to speak to that? Got a mic over that way? The question, Don, if you didn't hear, has to do with the rule recommendation for seawalls in Phase 6.
Yeah, the recommendation that came to the board was just to allow seawalls to be installed in Phase 6. And when we discussed that at a work session at the board, a number of items came up in regards to that. Some of the things that board members talked about in our discussion was if we approve, or just say you can have a seawall, one of the issues, well, several issues came up. One of the first ones was, should seawalls be uniform around the lake? You have to get an approval from the DEQ, and I think they have 4 different choices. So the question is, should we as a park make those uniform? The other thing is, should you get permission from your neighbor if they don't have a seawall? Because you put a seawall in and that changed the wave action, it may have a detrimental effect on your neighbor. Another issue that came up was there could be 2 boat stakes in front of your place. You put a seawall in, does that mean one is going to be eliminated? So if you put a seawall in, you have to tell your neighbor or someone else who has the right to that stake, I'm sorry, but you can't use it anymore. So that's why we did send it back to the Rules Committee to take a look at and to kind of think about some of those issues, and maybe it's going to take some experts to answer some of these questions, especially if we were to say, well, all the seawalls have to be uniform. So it really turns out to be a much bigger issue than we first thought it was, and so therefore we sent it back to the committee.
A second question would be, you want to change the bylaws to allow the board to borrow money without the membership approval. Now, if we go out and get pre-approval for a house or a car, you intend to borrow that money for that purpose. Do you have a purpose that you're going to borrow this money for?
The request to change it is for a clarification. If you remember last year, the board was presented with a package from our bank to have a line of credit, and they approved that. And subsequently, that bank questioned the wording which has been the same since well, way before when Byron Center was still the bank, and Sandy Pines was in much worse financial condition and was borrowing money pretty quickly and pretty often. So it had never been touched, it had never been questioned before. But it's just like touching a rule about seawalls, and you stir up a whole bunch of things in the perimeter. That's kind of what this did with the bank, is that they didn't think the board clearly had the ability to do that. And we had our legal counsel and their legal counsel look at it. And subsequently, we moved to another bank that agreed with the interpretation of our bylaws. With that said, this bylaw change our line of credit's in place. With that bylaw change, it would just clarify going forward so that this doesn't get foggy in the future. It doesn't. The board would not be allowed to borrow money if they had to put any security against it. But the reason, if you remember, with the capital reserve campaign, we had about $12 million we were going to spend over the next 10 years. We had some years where we were going to be short on cash, some years we'd be long, and that's what the line of credit is for, is to smooth out that, those dips. So it's a short term, it's 3-year. So we'll see how we go. We'd like to use as much cash of our own as we can. We have no plans right now to dip into that line of credit because we seem to have pretty good cash flow. So, but to avoid having to delay any projects any further than what they were before, and for the relative inexpensive cost of getting the line put in place, we did it as a safety factor. So, but it's a clarification, Larry, for going forward. That again, if we're gonna do anything, that they're gonna say, okay, you gotta pledge some assets of the park in order to do it. That would still have to go to the membership. And I don't think the board would want it any other way.
How much was the line of credit for?
$2.5 million.
Can I ask Dennis King some questions now?
Pardon me?
Can I ask Dennis King some questions?
Sure.
Say, Dennis, on your June meeting, I heard a lot of discussion between you and CB last night. Are you saying your June meeting was an open meeting that anybody could attend it and bring into discussion? In your June meeting for the Safety and Security Committee, was that an open meeting and anybody could attend it, the entire meeting?
We did have somebody attend that that was a member and left when it got into the confidential privilege section of it. And so it's ran the same way we've always run our meetings, that we have confidential privilege information. You have to be approved by the board. First the committee approves the person, then the board has to approve them. They have to sign a confidentiality form, and this individual understood that and says, I'll leave. He had no problem with it. And so it's no different than any other meeting we've had.
So did you get permission from the board to have a closed meeting for that June meeting?
Didn't have a closed meeting.
Was there confidential material handed out in that meeting?
The minutes of that meeting were also approved, and there was nothing in it that says closed meeting.
I understand that, but I asked, was there confidential material handed out in the meeting?
No, there was nothing handed out in that meeting. In May, there was confidential information handed out, but in the June meeting, there wasn't any. It was mostly verbal.
So you're saying there is confidential material handed out in the May meeting?
That's right. And the rules, the minutes of that meeting reflect that and indicate that these information and material was handed out and it was confidential. And that was the end of that.
So when this material was handed out, could members be present at that time?
Whoever was on the committee at that time got the confidential material.
No, I'm asking, could other members from the park, not of the committee, been present when those materials were handed out?
If somebody was attending the meeting, no, they probably wouldn't got a copy of it because they weren't approved by the board to be on that committee. So only the committee members would have got the information.
I think you're dancing around it. The question is, I understand that it was an open meeting. I'm asking, as all open meetings, members are allowed to come to the meetings and observe your committee meetings. So you're saying that me as a member could have been at that meeting when you handed out these confidential materials?
Sure, but you wouldn't got a copy of it.
All right, so there's no closed.
You're talking about two different things here, Larry. You're talking about a meeting, now you're talking about material being handed out that the members of the committee have to read. It has nothing to do with what you're talking about. You're talking about that you think that there was a closed meeting in June, and there wasn't. And that was a verbal discussion of privileged information that was given to the safety committee to think about and to know what's going on in the park. You got to remember, Larry, this is an advisory committee that only answers to the board. The board makes all these committees up. We have about 10. And what they put together and request, they can also take away. And so each committee is charged with certain things to do. My committee has safety and it has security. And so when there's things that become sensitive and there may be some talk about what's going on and what's being handled and what we have to do, so it's confidential. And so that's where that's at.
No, I fully understand that all the committees serve at the board's pleasure. They can make and disband boards or committees as they choose, and they can put members on these committees as they choose. So you're saying, all right, let's go back to May meeting. There was no closed session in the May meeting where confidential materials or things that a general member could, not on the committee, could attend it. And so you had part of the meeting in May, regular members would have been restricted from attending it.
No, not what he said, Larry.
Well, I'm not trying to badger him or say, I'm just trying to get clarification.
I think if, for this conversation, it would probably be good for the two of you to go face to face and finish it off there. This has been litigated with the board. And it's been approved as it stands, so let's leave it there, and we'll go on to something else. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, of course I do. So I had a comment and a suggestion and a question. So I just wanted to say, good job, and I don't know his name. To the
Austin.
Austin,
Yes.
do good job.
He's been
on the
up all
video.
night at the all-nighter, and then he's come here to come here. So yeah.
And I appreciate the speed with which he uploads this stuff. I have to tell you, when I've seen other people doing this job and it's taking months to get the video uploaded, I have to tell you, at that point, nobody cares anymore.
That's right.
If you don't get the video uploaded like within 2 or 3 days, the interest drops off and nobody even cares to view these. So good job on getting it uploaded quickly. I appreciate that.
For sure.
My suggestion is we get a lot of alerts and a lot of emails from Sandy Pines on all kinds of various things. The one thing that I don't see us getting alerts on is when they're spraying the lake. And when you spray the lake, that's a safety issue. If anything ought to get a text alert on my phone, it's like, stay out of the water. All I see is these little yellow papers on trees, and I know it's on the event calendar, but people always don't look there. I think you gotta be able to send these alerts out to people and say, the water's just been treated, stay out of the water until whatever. So that's my suggestion. I don't know how you're gonna.
Somebody beat you to it, because somebody beat you to it last week, so we're on it now.
Okay, you're on it, good.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was an easy fix, and
Okay.
it made sense, just like you're saying now. We have the technology to do the alert. It's a good alert,
Right.
a good use of the alert. And so it will begin. Josh got a copy of the schedule, and then just prior to each time, the schedule sets up within a day or two of when they plan to be there, but they
Right.
could come early, they could come late.
Yeah.
So then Andy Tomzak is the guy's name from Professional Lake Management. He will send an email or call Ben in maintenance and say, hey, I'm coming this day instead of this day, and whatever. So we're hooking Andy up directly with Ben and Josh, so that Josh can post it. And then Josh is going to also ask to see if he can get where they do it, because they don't do the whole lake. They'll spot do it. They'll do over here in phase 4, then they'll go over to the phase 3, and they'll do something over there. They don't spray the whole lake at any one given time. So a lot of people aren't aware of that. So if you don't see you don't see the yellow stickers or the yellow sheets, chances are they didn't spray there. I think a hot spot is along the dam, the North Shore, wherever they see a influx of this milfoil, they want to control it, and that's where they spray.
But the water in the lake isn't stagnant. I mean, it tends to flow toward the dam. So if they spray over there in phase 5, eventually that water migrates over to phase 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so
and that's why the alert would go out to everybody, not just by phase. But to say that that's an alert is a fix was a good thing. That's one of the reasons we went into that program, and I think it's a good use of it. So.
Okay, and so my question, and really this is, maybe Don can answer this, is my understanding is that when a board meets as a corporate entity, there are state laws in every state that says every board meeting has to be recorded. That's a corporate legal requirement. Every state has those laws. And so when I hear about planning meetings, and I ask, okay, where's the minutes of this planning meeting? And they say, well, there aren't any. It's not recorded. There's no minutes, whatever. It makes me wonder legally whether that's a legal meeting. You know, if there's no recording and there's no minutes and whatever of that meeting, and it is a meeting, planned meeting by the board, it makes me wonder whether we're violating state laws, because the state laws, I think, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would really love to hear from legal counsel on this, whether or not that's really right, whether or not we should be taking minutes and minutes should be available as to what goes on. And I understand you're not passing motions or that. Yeah. That all has to come before the formal meeting, but still, it makes me question.
Go ahead, Don. You want to take that? I know since I've been here, there's never been any taping of it.
Well, I'm not talking about taping. I'm just talking about minutes, and I think that's the legal requirement, that there has to be some recording minutes, and there's no stipulation as to the detail required in the minutes. The minutes can be as brief as you want or as detailed as you want, but I think there has to be some record of that the meeting occurred and what the content of the meeting was. And so, but I don't think the secretary takes any minutes at these planning meetings, and that the minutes are never reviewed or approved or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know how legal that is.
Yeah, we probably meet that in some form, because what we do is we take the agenda that's going to be used on Friday night, and so the members have a chance to look at that agenda. And as you pointed out, we really don't make any decisions. There's no votes that are taken. Through the discussion, you know, you can assume that there's a consensus on some things, but otherwise there is no official vote. So that agenda that we have, I suppose we could just turn every item into a sentence and say, well, the board discussed the finances. The board looked at a proposal from a committee without any, because the decision is going to be made on Friday night. So, you know, that could easily be done. In fact, Kathy probably has all those agendas that went to those planning sessions on her database. So.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not running afoul of, you know, state legal requirements as to, you know, whenever you hold a board meeting.
Yeah, we can ask our attorney that question as to whether or not there has to be some kind of formal minutes, and if that's a requirement, that's not a problem to do.
Okay, thanks.
The planning meetings until last September were a closed meeting until they were voted on to be open for audience participation only. And it was at that meeting, it was also noted, if that became a problem, the board had the authority to close those meetings again. That would be if somebody came in and couldn't sit quietly and heckled or whatever, and made it impossible for the board to do its work. But yeah, we probably should get a legal opinion on that, just to be sure we're not running afoul of anything. But they always were a closed meeting, at least going back as far as I've been here 5 years, until last September's meeting. So.
Yeah, when we have something definite that the committee would like to propose, then we get that information from a committee. And sometimes we send it back to the committee. For example, the seawalls. There was a lot of issues that came up we thought had to be dealt with. And so within the next day or so, a memo went to the chair of the committee sharing with that person the discussion at the board as to some of the issues that were brought up. Now, there were no decisions made. The board didn't say, well, all the seawalls have to be uniform, for example. It's just something that we thought that the committee ought to be alert to. So then a memo or an email goes to the committee chair, and we hope that the committee chair shares it with the members. So, yeah. We've had members from the park come in and sit and observe. Yes. I think the first time we were open, I think there was a dozen people there, and I think after that, it's probably been less than 5. So, people do come in and sit and observe.
Okay.
And I have to be honest with you, we do not get into a discussion with members who are in the audience. That's not the purpose of the meeting, for us to debate someone that comes there. If someone wants to come in and observe, that's exactly what they can do. We don't interact with the audience during that meeting. After the meeting is over, anybody can come up and talk to board members about any particular issue that's on their mind.
Gene, I had a question thinking about lake quality. Have we ever had the fish tested here for amounts of mercury, other metals, and contaminants?
Good question. Yeah, about, I think it was 3-4 years ago, we had a company out of Ohio come in and do a lake and fishery assessment. I've got a copy of that if you'd like to have it. Tells you where all the good fish are.
They're not at my place, I know that. But I think if we have that information, we should relay it to everybody, because as a younger people come in, we have more ladies that could be pregnant, and that's a concern. We should have recommendations. Fish should not be eaten, more frequently than once a month or a week or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I maybe I misunderstood some of what you asked. We did not get a chemistry breakdown of the fish. We got the quality of the food source, or quantity and quality of the food source, and the quantity and quality of the fish in the lake, as well as lake depth and that kind of thing. It was that kind of. Who would do that? Well, I shouldn't say that. We had them tested when if you get a really hard winter and you get a deep freeze, and we get fish that come up about June. They come up out of the bottom. They were killed over the winter months. We did send some to Michigan State about 3-4 years ago, about the same time, to see if we could find the cause of death. But yeah, we could probably, like you said, if it's not that much money, there's no reason why we shouldn't do it. So, what would you recommend? A cross section, or yeah. Yeah. All right. No, I didn't know if you were the expert or not. What's that? Yeah, that's where we sent them in before for the freezing. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'll write it down. They recommend we do that about every 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. Water quality of the lake? Yeah. Yeah, about every 10 years. In fact, when we did it 3 years ago, it's the first time it's ever been done. So it's gone since 1971 to about 2015. It had never been checked. So we felt it was time to do that. So we want to get good stuff. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Is there a way we can get somebody to review some of the rules on the boats' sizes on the lake? The rules with the 24-foot pontoon was meant with like a 60 or a 50 horse motor, not some of these 150 and 200 horsepower motors. I'm not trying to limit them, but when you have skiers and tubers and you lose somebody, it takes a pontoon twice as long to turn around. Between that and with the newfound kayaking and paddleboarding during busy times on the water, people like to go right to the island, and something's going to happen one of these times.
Yep, good. And this has come up before, but nothing's been done on it, quite honestly. Where it belongs is you'd start with the rules. Go to the rules committee meeting or get a hold of the rules chair. Ask them to consider it. I think the rules committee that is currently in existence is not the same committee at all, if any of them, for when this was brought up before. So it'd be a good thing. I know what you're saying. There's some pontoons out there with some pretty powerful engines on, and you're exactly right. It takes them longer to turn than it does a power boat or a V-hull boat. So it's worthy of looking at, and that's where it would have to come from. Then it would go to the board. Yes.
Okay, just to make sure I understand, if I understood from the board meeting last night, the FEMA money has been 2/3 pre-spent prior to getting the money in, and the third will be spent in a tornado shelter thingamajig. Did I understand that correctly last night, that the FEMA money has not yet come into the treasury, correct?
No, we received all but about, I want to say, 195,000.
Which is how much of the total grant?
Was about 865,000 we expected. So we received a large portion already. It's just for closeout, we have to do our final closeout before we finalize, but we've been paying contractors all along, so there is a little bit of an overlap. I think I said that was about 165,000.
Okay.
Is what the overlap is that we're seeing in that cash reduction.
You're
Yeah,
still
that we've
expecting that?
that we've noticed come out in payment, but haven't
Okay.
received back, and it's already been requested, and I expect it within the next couple weeks.
All right, I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, good job on the grant, by the way.
Well, that goes to, thank you. The kudos for that goes to Steve DeArmond in large part of our staff. He wrote that grant, and he also wrote the one that we're currently have an application in on, which is almost a $4 million grant. So. I'm sorry? It all has to stay on that project. The 2 CCs over in phase 3, that was the FEMA project that we're just completing. It's up, we're using it, but the paperwork is not completed yet. No, that'll be done as soon as we get our last. And the way construction works is that when you get an invoice, you pay 90% of it and you withhold 10, right? So that's what we're waiting on is that part that we need to pay up, but there's a couple of things that need to be taken care of before we do that, and then Kimberly will submit that last one, and we'll close it out. So once we get, the $165,000 or $180,000 that's still out there, that will close that project, and then if we're fortunate enough to get another project, that'll start another project.
So by the phase 2 pool, the building that's going up will not be a tornado shelter?
No. It's going to be a great amenity, but it's not going to please everybody. But no, that's going to be a very small building. That's not going to be a CC, because there's a CC right at the end of that. So this will be it could be a men's and a women's, one-holer and a storage building and the pumps. So it's going to be small. Not there, no, no, no. That whole area, for the most part, up until the playground, is all drain field. So, you know, we got to be sensitive about what goes on there. So. Yeah, no, we didn't write a grant with that in mind. So, yep. Yeah, Andy.
So, talking about finances, after the financial statement year-end got published, you know, I went through it and had a lot of questions, but I'll just summarize some of my top observations here, some questions maybe you can answer. So overall salaries were about 3% over budget, but what I noticed was administrative salaries, $53,000 over budget, about 12.5% over budget for administrative salaries, which struck me as odd. It seems like administrative, like salaries and wages in general, ought to be a pretty much fixed item if you know what your staffing and what your, you know, payroll looks like. So why are we 12.5% over budget?
We added a person in there, which was an assistant manager that wasn't the expectation. We were moving Josh over to marketing and communications, so we had some extra wages in there for that, and a part-time person to cover that loss of hours from that other person.
Okay.
So yeah.
I noticed also the bullpen income was only about 55% of what we had budgeted, and it seemed like the strategy of raising rates kind of backfired a little bit. It's like we raised the rates so high that people vote with their feet and decided, I'm not paying that, and everybody went elsewhere, and we only got half the money we expected to.
Yeah.
Was that a bad strategy?
Part of it was the way we could bill at the time. The restriction we had with our software, we were only able to bill once a year. So when we changed it last year, right now the bullpen is 80% rented out. So part of it was, yes, it was I will admit that, great, right along with you. That it was a bump, but it brought us up to what the folks are next door. Consequently, they bumped theirs again. So, you know, you can rent over there for $30 a month, or you can rent from us for about $25. So dollar-wise to dollar, you're not going to find 24/7 security inside of security for the kind of price we got. So it's like the golf carts. Somebody was complaining the other day. I don't know if you were in on that meeting or not. Somebody said, I think it was a conversation on one of the website or one of the Facebook sites, that we're expensive at $50. So Ryan St. Ange did a survey of 6 different parks and found that they run anywhere, for a 4-passenger car, it runs anywhere from $75 to $95 a day. So we're trying to keep it affordable, everything, but at the same time, I have a responsibility to collect as much as I can at a market price, market value, as close to market value, that for the park, because that's what keeps our dues down.
Right.
It's not the dues you pay; it's the dues that you don't pay that these operations cover. So we need to make them profitable as we can, and we need to be conservative on the operational side as well. But 50% of the money, all the dues we pay only covers 50% of what it costs to run the park. So the rest of it has to come from profit centers. Some people don't like to hear that word. They're making money off of me. Yep, we sure are, but it's not. It's in some cases, but it's kept the ability for the park not to have an increase in dues since 1977.
I noticed that the commission income from real estate sales was $137,000, which was 61% over what we had budgeted. But then I thought I heard last night that our commission income is down dramatically this year.
There's been a dramatic decrease in sales done through the park, because there have been different avenues added online and stuff, trying to gear people to sell outside of the park, which is affecting our bottom line.
That line item goes up and down. Last year we had like 200 transfers and sales. Right. I think it was about 170 sales, and then the rest of them were name changes and transfers. This year, that number's way down. There's not as many places for sale consequently, we aren't paying as much in commission, and we're not bringing in as much with the commission for the park either.
Any consideration, because I think a lot of people look at the commission rates that are being charged and look at what residential real estate commissions, typically 5% or 6%, or even sometimes you can negotiate less than that, and seeing that we pay significantly more than that in the park. And again, people are deciding, you know, I'm better off on my own, especially with online resources. I can do it on my own. And frankly, I have to tell you, if I'm going to hire a real estate agent, even within the park, I'm expecting professional photography. You're going to hire a professional photographer firm. You're going to hire a staging firm. You're going to come out and stage my place for me. If I'm paying that kind of rate, I expect that kind of service. And we don't offer those services in the park. So I'm wondering, are we overcharging? Should we charge less? Maybe we could.
I don't think we're
more
charging
sales?
enough, but that's just, you know, we're going back to profit centers. We are, in the off-season this year, we'll be considering different levels. So if depending on how much your place sells for. And there's a possibility there. I'm willing to look at that. I haven't committed to it yet, but I'm committed to looking at it.
But I think one of the difficulties you have is that lakefront property, which is always in high demand, which is where you could generate the most revenue. But people know if I got a lakefront light, I can easily sell that myself. I don't need your help. I can sell it in an instant. So you're out all that money. If you don't present to me a package that makes that look attractive to me that I'm willing to take advantage of, then I'm going to say I'm not paying $10,000, $15,000 commission because I know I can sell my lot in an instant because I'm on the lake and everybody wants a lakefront. So it seems like you shoot yourself in the foot.
It depends on how much labor you want to put into it. You know, the idea of profit is to put as little into it as you can in order to get as much out of it as you can. So yeah, can we get a professional photographer to go into everybody's, you know, $50,000 site and spend $2,500 to make it presentable? Because a lot of these are, I think there's some personal responsibility that has to be taken in some of these sites too. That you need to make it, you need to stage it as an owner. You need to stage it. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when our salespeople take somebody out, the first time, say they haven't been to Sandy Pines, they're going to spend 2 to 3 hours with them, showing them the park, get them acquainted with the park, and in half the time, they buy from an owner, it's for sale by owner. So we're spending money to promote the park as well as just trying to sell the park. But I do think that there's some changes to the structure of the commission that should be looked at. I mean, it used to be 10%, now it's 7.5%. So obviously somebody looked at it before and said that's too much. But we don't force anyone to use our sales department either. So where I think in some cases the brokerage of any transfer would have to go through the office, but I'm not ready to do that. But I do think that we can take a look at those. And the high number ones, you're exactly right. Those we don't get many of those. If you get one, it's because the owner doesn't plan on coming back, can't come back, or then they don't want to mess with showing people through and that kind of thing. But if you're on the water, usually you don't need a salesperson.
So, and then I noticed inspection income from 2016 to 17 more than double. It went from $41,000 to $95,000. And is that because we had so many sales? Is that inspection related to sales, or are people putting up more garages, or what is that?
Part of that is the biggest share of that is that we always had to inspect, or it was our responsibility to inspect the site that was for sale, right? So Ernie would go out, or Ralph would go out, or Jeff, or whoever was, they would go out, they would stake it, and we weren't crediting the inspection department for any of that. So what we do now out of that $850 or $650 transfer fee, $250 of it goes to the inspector, because it's harder and harder to find an inspector that was willing to work on it. So you're paying a little more. So we're also trying to generate a little more income or at least map it to the right account.
Okay, so it's an accounting change, okay. And we paid $39,000 in credit card and bank fees last year. Is that from people using their credit card to pay for their dues, and we pay the credit card fee on top of that, or what? Almost $40,000 in credit card and bank fees. Why are our fees so high?
You want to answer that, Kimberly?
Part of that is a change within the club profit structure and our credit card company. So there are a lot more people paying online. So using the portal that we now have available and through credit cards. So unfortunately with the new system, we aren't able to do the bank drafting unless you do the ACH program, but you can't put your checking account number on there. So a lot more people are using the credit card feature, which is increasing the output of fees, but then also coming back through that is charged back. So if you look at the revenue up above on that, there is an offset to that where you'll see our revenue from that offsetting that cost.
It's pretty close to a pass-through. We get charged 2.9% and we charge 3%.
Yeah, okay, that's what I assumed. Okay.
And that's been adjusted now, future budget, just because that change came midstream in the middle of the fiscal year. So that's why you see it at the bottom line of last fiscal year, just because it was unanticipated.
And so my last financial comment was that I was once again this year disappointed when I looked at the year-end result and I didn't see an actual capital budget or capital expense report. I see the actuals for the operating fund, and I've asked for this for a couple of years now, and why the capital fund does not report actual expenditures. I see the original budget, but I never see year-end actual expenditures. And I know that what we end up spending money capital-wise is not always the same exactly as what we budgeted early on. So I'm wondering why we can't report, you know, where my $300 capital reserve money, et cetera, where that money's going. I think it's just open, honest, transparent communication, and I don't understand why the capital fund is treated differently in terms of year-end reporting than the operating fund.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, and Kimberly will have something to say on it too, probably. But I have no problem with reporting totals, but I am not interested in reporting line item totals. And so if you got a group of things, you list them and you have a subtotal on what those all are, I don't think that the board would have a problem with that.
Yeah, it'd just be good to see, you know, opening balance, here's what we spent categories of money on, and closing balance. I mean, that's...
Let me ask you to clarify one of your statements. You said we don't always spend what's in the budget. Are you saying that we spend more than or less than?
No, I'm saying that, you know, during the year, things come up, you know, I see things being repaired or maintained or resurfaced or whatever, and when I look at the original budget, those items weren't in the budget.
Right.
So obviously we're spending money sometimes on things that we didn't forecast.
Yep.
And if we spend money on that, then there's something else in the budget that we budgeted that we didn't spend money on. You know, and the year-end report ought to reflect that. But
Yep. And it does. What the board sees, it reflects exactly that. Did everybody understand what he's saying here? Is that you may have 10 let's just say 10 line items that you plan on at the beginning of the year spending on capital. And you might wind up with 15 items, 5 of which are brand new because they had to be prioritized into the budget. And then there would be probably, depending on the amount of money, on how it lined up, we'd have to hold back on some of the other items that were previously expected to be spent money on, and they had to be reprioritized to a lower priority in order to get these other ones in. I mean, Kimberly could probably give you a number of cases, and that happens every year. The balancing between the accounts or the line items that are anticipated and then the actual line items at the end of the year can change. But the bottom line is that we ask the board for a budget of X, and if it's X plus, we have to go back to the board. If you've been on the board here before, you know that that doesn't happen often, so we've been very fortunate to be able to maintain and the budget expenditures that we've been requested from the board or to the board and have been given. So overall, the capital budget has been healthy, but I'll tell you what, that passage last year that was a godsend. Thank you. If you voted for it, I thank you for it, because it's gonna make the park a better place for the next 47 years. So it's gonna make a big difference. It's about 11 o'clock, folks. Roger, how many kids did you have the other day?
123.
Oh, man.
I'd like to thank the people that came. Because Gary is no longer in the park. He had a stroke last year, and he's down in Florida now. And but a lot of people just came and helped out. One guy changed, stayed out of work to come and help. And but the one request I would have is some of the rods and reels that I have. I put out 50, and I had one girl there 40 minutes ahead to fish. And some of the rods and reels are getting crappy. People have given them to me. I fixed them up. Yeah, not the fish. And we desperately need some. We put these in the rec center that they can loan them out, and then so they don't go in my pocket. But anyone that would be willing to give old fishing tackle that is workable, that I can fix, or any brand new, like push button reels, you know, the Zebco 202s, and sometimes you get them on sale for $9.95. We'd love to have some of those put in there. So, we also appreciate Monterey Pines General Store and the Outback. They donated bait, and I mean, lots of bait. I sent back twice to get more bait. So we really appreciate them. They volunteered to do it, and so thanks for all the help. And I think the kids appreciate it too.
Yeah. Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Sandy Pines people are great people. Thank you all for coming. You've been a great crowd, and it's been fun standing here in front of you. And thank you for the questions, for the comments, and you guys have a great weekend. Thank you.